deliberately poisoned the Gulf. And I have a very personal association with this through Kathy and our niece here, who has an infant and is going to be returning to the Gulf. And it's like, if anything, I would prefer that she not, simply because I know the kind of chemical problems that are going on. Plus, we also have to acknowledge that, the powers that be, are expecting it to escalate. The reason I say that is because they're waging this war against Gulf whistleblowers that need not exist unless they're planning for part 2. And so I think there's something else that they've got planned in that region that, I have some foreboding of it. We don't have any data science for it, but the actual analysis of what's going on leads me to think that the powers that be are mucking about a little bit more than they should be, given what they've already accomplished. Then, yes, we see very large disruptions occurring now in the Pacific Ocean that cannot be explained by our current level of understanding about oceanographic science. So, for instance, Richard Sauter is reporting the same things we're seeing here. He sent me an email saying that the beaches are closed in Ecuador because of excessively high tides, something to do theoretically with wind and excessively large waves. We've got a weird situation where the lunation should not be causing the depth or the height of the tide level we have here at the far end of Puget Sound. We're a very high tide region. We have a daily swing at about 13 feet near where I live, but yet we've been doing 15 feet these last couple of days, and it makes no sense at all given what's going on with the moon. So absent any other causal effect for that, I'm at the moment putting it down to what we're also seeing out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and I've got reports from all kinds of islanders as well as the science data coming in through NOAA and some of the other places. And I think probably Stan Deo, he tracks the heat maps of the Pacific Ocean, so he's probably also seeing it. But there's some excessively odd activity that's occurring from Midway Island in an arc that goes down to the Marquesas and then arcs back over towards Chile. What that activity is masked by the symptoms at this point. But it could well be that our Pacific Plate crack is developing. Now, does that mean we should head for the hills? I don't know of any hills that would be of any use to head to unless you're right on the coast. If you're in Crescent City, Oregon, and you hear there's a tsunami coming and it's because of an undersea earthquake in the Pacific, yeah, that would make sense to get out of Dodge and get into those hills. Same thing with La Push in Washington, or even perhaps some of the islands up here, San Juan Islands, get a little bit higher elevation. But if you're in Florida, it's not going to make any difference. And I don't think we're talking anything like Patrick Garrell's fear of planet-crossing waves, even from something as large as the Pacific Plate cracking, because there are certain theoretical and actual physical measured heights of tsunamis that just have not ever been exceeded. So we kind of have a clue that even if the Pacific Plate cracks, we're maybe looking at 200 or 300 feet maximum wave height in some particular points where the beach supports it. But other areas, we're back to the same kind of thing that the Sumatran tsunami. So Hawaii is at danger and so on. I would be paying attention to what happens in that particular arc, but I don't know that I would let it motivate me to flee. And especially since there's, all of the financial issues. I mean, that hits everybody. I've got doing everything I can to come up with funding to keep a couple of kids working just because they're at risk and they need money. And it's that way all over. This is basically Appalachia up here in the West Coast. It's going to be very, very dire, but we're looking at the beginning of the recession, not its end, not its middle.
Oh, I think we've been in the recession for a very long time. It's affected me personally for 2.5 years. So I see people talking about, oh, we're not in a recession, and I want to laugh in their face. Oh, really? Come to my house.
Yes. Happy days are here again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I remember all those. And yeah. No, we've got no recovery, and it's all an illusion in the minds of the politicos. The reality of it is that we've got to start opting out. Use the phrase of the kids and go off grid, but basically opt out of the dollar system if you want to eliminate its ability to influence your life. And it's a hard thing to do, but it can be done.
Yeah. I did want to make one mention because a lot of y'all are not on the East Coast or on the East Coast beach. About a week ago, I was watching the news and they panned over the beach in my city and there was no waves whatsoever. And I've never seen our beach with absolutely no waves. It looked like a lake. It was weird.
That's very odd, yes.
I've never seen that. Anyways, just thought I'd mention that.
It scared the hell out of me, yeah.
Sorry. So the next question I have is from J.S. Earhart, and it's, is there anything in your data that shows when, in specific or even a relative time frame, the middle class becomes non-existent, such as the rich and poor medieval time like? And how long will that last before the total collapse of the current power structure?
I'd have to peg that at being a part of our March to May period of next year. That's when we'll see the largest impact on the middle class in the U.S. relative to the degradation of the social order and the underpinning of the dollar and the political order and TV and, the just-in-time delivery system and movies and all of that sort of thing. We're at it now, though. I mean, it's just been a huge collapse of our social structure to where 25 years ago, 12% of the populace was basically the ruling class, and now it's less than 1% and shrinking. So we're at a very dangerous level in historical terms. But March of next year, that's when the middle class just starts to fade away. How long will it last? I don't know. And I don't know that the terms will be meaningful. The middle idea of a middle class is only meaningful if you're in the aristocracy. If you're if you live in a different social structure, you need not have a hierarchical division of the humans who live around you. And so personally, I would like to live in a world where we didn't have classes and we were just all out there exploring and basically out causing problems for a universe in a more or less organized fashion that we all agree on. So, but the middle class issue, it goes away in 2012, and I don't think it's going to be a meaningful term in 2014 if we looked at that old data.
See, I agree with you. I'm not into this whole structure of money. It doesn't make sense. Too many people are miserable.
I know. Well, also, we have to look at the real reality of it. When money goes away, all that has disappeared is an abstraction. Not a single apple has left the planet. Not a single iota of energy has gone from the planet, and so on and so on and so on. Plus, let's look at some weird things about money at the moment. Let's divert for a bit of current history, probably ongoing as we speak, and will probably contribute to the events that will continue through to August 31 relative to the fiscal structure of the planet. In 2001, on September 10, Donald, the egregious pimp, Rumsfeld, comes out and announces that $2.2 trillion is missing from the Pentagon's budget, and, shucks and by golly, we just don't know where it went. We're just not even going to look for it. It's just too much, and we just can't find it. And then 2008, $6.42 trillion disappeared from the global economy, basically from the United States. 6.42 trillion, so an escalation from 2 trillion to 6 trillion over just those few years. And right now we have the curious little situation where they go through the theater entirely hooked up by them of the debt ceiling, and then the day afterwards they draw down that credit card to its maximum level, at the same time that the rumors are swirling that the Federal Reserve is calling in every note it put out in the bailout money of the $16 trillion to the foreign central banks. If we take that in total, that would be $32 trillion available to be looted. I wonder how much of that's going to disappear from our global system. See, we think here, from an analysis of what's going on in the background, that the looting of the global system is a sure sign of the imminence of the collapse. And the escalation from 2 to 6 to now potentially 32 shows basically a parabolic escalation. We've reached the knee of the curve. And so we're probably within that period of time, let's just say this year, that the whole system comes unglued because it has been looted. And it's kind of a situation that the Maasai face. These are these guys in Africa that drink blood from cows. And it's forced on them by their environment. I don't find it particularly appetizing, but they survive on it. But you got to be able to know how to bleed the cow such that the poor old cow just doesn't keel over on you. But at some point, the cow may get so old or decrepit, you don't worry about that. And I think the black ops guys are at that point. that the people that are looting the system have just decided, oh, it's going down anyway, so let's take out the last we can.
Yeah, I had one more question that goes along with that. It's in regards to the predictions of the economy crashing. Mm-hmm. And for the past several years, people have been rushing out to buy gold and silver as a backup to worthless paper. And my thoughts, wouldn't this still be a materialistic game where who holds the most money wins, regardless of what form the money is in? Like
that's true. That's true.
Like seems like a shift to precious metals would still be playing in the hands of powers that be because they still have most of it. I mean, some people have been able to get their hands on it, but it's not nearly as much.
Let's say that you're quite correct. It's 100% true of your statement, but there's an underlying assumption there that you just sort of gloss over without even really thinking about, and that is that they would be able to hold on to it.
I see.
See, so yes, there's about to be and we're participating in right now the greatest wealth transfer in history as we transfer all of the wealth out of the paper debt instruments into a very small and narrow market, clearly defined basically in terms of its portability by the precious metals, and we can just say that gold and silver dominate those, and there's no point in discussing platinum, rhodium, and the others. And those precious metals are going to be it's very interesting to look at it at a mega economic level. For instance, there's more people on the planet than have ever been ounces of gold extracted from the ground in our current civilization. If we take the work of Tellinger and the gold mining in South Africa, it's quite clear that the vast majority of the planet's gold has been removed from the planet's surface, doesn't exist on our planet anymore. And as a result, our gold is a very precious resource because the assays where they would say that gold was 0.2% of the crust were based on the crust of the earth now and not the way it used to be. But when that wealth transfer takes place, we have had data for probably close to a decade suggesting that the ability to possess large amounts of wealth in very few small hands is going to be severely tested. Now, we never have really any clear indication of the outcome, but even now we're getting legal indications, such as the people of India basically have done a huge wealth transfer of billions of dollars from the supposed Indian royalty to the populace as a whole. So that kind of thing is going to go on all over the place, and the royals are going to just be left wondering, hey, what happened there?
So other people are going to get a hold of the gold, pretty much.
Correct.
Okay. Because, I was wondering, in my thoughts, materialism is not the way to go. So any type of fiat currency, to me, seems redundant. Like we're going to keep repeating the same patterns.
I agree with you, and that's why our description of the economics that arise after the May of 2013 peak of the solar activity, and also the bubble for us relative to the hard stop on our data. But our old long-term data had always pointed to a calorie-based economy that was basically, if one wanted to have a historical context, more related to, say, Middle Ages Japan than anything we have currently, where the farmers are revered because of their ability to produce excess food and feed more than themselves. And from that point on, your whole social order takes that as its underpinning, and off they go. But without the squirreliness of the current situation of the farmer structure in Japan, more like the old days of the pre-samurai even. And so the calorie economy uses as its ability to transmit excess calories, a temporary store, if you will, the gold and the silver, which are, in a sense, a currency, but not a fiat. And they have meaning because it takes energy to extract them from the soil. And your economy can grow, for instance,